Ahoy, gang! Welcome back to Arclay Overcast. Now, the Resident Evil Netflix series. Okay. I really wasn't initially gonna do a review on this, but I figured I might as well. I don't know how fair of a review it's going to be because I only got through 3 episodes and I was done. So, this is going to be a review of my personal experience with what I saw in this Netflix series. So, to start off, obviously, we're going into a Resident Evil situation here, so there's gonna be some bias from the fans, including myself. You know, we already have this very well established storyline and elements and a foundation for Resident Evil, and we expect some things. So, going into this, already knowing what we knew from the advertisements and from the trailers, it was another one of those go into it with an open mind type of situations. And girl, is anyone else just sick and tired and done with going into Resident Evil films with an open mind? I'm done. Done with it. We shouldn't have to. We shouldn't have to deal with this from so many Resident Evil films already. Having to go in with an open mind and just keep things, you just don't know what to expect anymore, which is sad. Because we do know what to expect from a Resident Evil game. But anyway, my personal experience with this show is probably very similar to, other Resident Evil fans. I went into episode 1 already very skeptical, and I watched it, and turns out it was worse than I thought it was going to be. I went in mentally prepared, and just apparently not mentally prepared enough. And I didn't binge watch this show because I really didn't have time. But I got through episode 1, got through episode 2, and just felt like I was completely wasting my time. Even to the point where I'm feeling embarrassed and ashamed that other people are seeing this and associating it with Resident Evil. To me, this show was kind of like the Terminator Genesis and Dark Fate of Resident Evil. That's pretty bad. I had people telling me, it gets better after, the first 2 episodes. So I gave episode 3 a shot. It didn't get better for me. First off, it shouldn't be that way, right? The first episode of a show, the pilot, is meant to hook you. It's meant to keep you wanting more and coming back. Meant to keep you hanging on. It's at least supposed to make you want to see what's gonna happen next. This series failed miserably for me in that aspect. I couldn't get into it. I didn't care about what happened next. Even starting with episode 1, it feels like they didn't even try. Honestly, if you've seen the trailers, all of them, then you've pretty much seen what happens in the first 3 episodes. Like, the majority of what happens in the first 3 episodes. I can't really speak for what happens later in the series because I didn't watch it. Didn't want to, still don't want to. If you think that I should, let me know down in the comments. Let me know what you thought about it. To me, it's not interesting at all. The way they tried to execute it. I can see what they're trying to do with it, but the execution was bad. The story was bad. The writing's horrible. The characters are just absolutely terrible. Nothing interesting about the characters whatsoever. We got Lance Reddick playing Wesker, and I love Lance. Phenomenal actor. He's a great dude. There was a moment or two where I could actually see, he would make a very good, Wesker in the original Resident Evil universe. But even still, it wasn't interesting enough because of the way the story was going, the way the story was written. And I can only hope the next thing that comes is a big fat nothing. Honestly, the show, it doesn't look or feel Resident Evil at all. And it reminds me more, actually, of Dying Light 2. If you played Dying Light 2, you might know what I'm talking about. Now, the part of Dying Light 2 I'm talking about, referring to the show, is, the show starts off in a post-apocalyptic situation that was caused by the T-virus in the show. But the environments, the zombies, the settings where the survivors stay, and even the characters, man, all of it looks like it was just copied right out of Dying Light 2. Now, the story of Dying Light, it's a little bit similar to Resident Evil in the fact that it stems from a viral outbreak, right? The Haran virus, it gets let loose on the city of Haran, and we've got this corporation called the Global Relief Effort, or GRE, and they're supposed to be helping, under the guise of the good guys, but, they're doing some shady stuff, and they're messing with the Haran virus, and go to, Dying Light 2, they think they made a cure, some drug that people would use, and it ends up contaminating the world, and the whole world is, goes to this post-apocalyptic zombie apocalypse style scenario. And even the playable characters in Dying Light 2, I mean, they're doing all these hand-to-hand parkour type things, even jumping from great heights. Like in the scene where she jumps off of that building or whatever it is from a great height and lands on her feet, rolls, and is totally fine. No aid spray, no green herb, nothing, just totally fine. Anyway, I love Dying Light, I love those games, but I also thought that Dying Light would have made a cool movie or a series like this, but not the way this was done. Like, this wouldn't even made a good Dying Light series. Like, it's very clear from the beginning that this show caters to a much more, very modern, younger crowd, and doesn't waste any time touching on, modern sensitive topics over and over again, just within the first 3 episodes. And touching a little more on the story, I mean, not only is the writing just horrible, but there's 2 stories simultaneously going on at the same time. You've got your future, the post-apocalypse event, and then you've got the past, new Raccoon City, modern event, and they're just going from this one to this one to this one to this one to this one and this one. And it's like, you would think that they would learn from Welcome to Raccoon City that telling 2 stories at once does not work. I mean, it's kind of irritating to watch. I mean, for me at least, as far as I know, nobody liked that about Welcome to Raccoon City, and there was a lot of flack about it, but they're doing it again in this show, and it's not the same as like a mixing Chris and Jill scenario or Leon and Claire scenario from the game. It's not like that. It's just 2 completely different things that are related, but they're going on 2 completely different times, and they're trying to play them at the same time. And one thing that I knew from the beginning that it just wasn't going to work for me was that this show was emphasizing on all the things that I personally do not like from the later games. Even, one of my least favorite Resident Evil games, Resident Evil 0, I cannot stand the James Marcus character. And this lady that runs Umbrella, apparently in the show, her name is Evelyn Marcus, and she talks about her father and being the founder of Umbrella. I mean, we know that's James Marcus, old opera singing leech controlling, wacko over here that should have never existed in the series in the first place, in my opinion. And it further it adopts the whole over-the-top action, sci-fi, dramatic overacting from the Paul Anderson films. You know, granted, I only got through like the third Paul Anderson movie and I was done with those completely. I bet it would not surprise me if Paul Anderson had something to do with this behind the scenes. You know, if he secretly didn't like the fact that people were saying that Welcome to Raccoon City was better than his movies, and he's like, I'll show you. And then he orchestrated this whole Netflix Resident Evil series, left his name out of it, but here it is, something so much worse than his movies. You know, like I said before, he has been dethroned. And going into the series, I was excited to see some BOWs. I was excited to see, you know, from the trailers, how we get a little more, you know, the lickers and the spiders, and I guess their version of a gravedigger, which is the giant caterpillar in this case. But even then, I mean, Caterpillar got killed off really quick. You know, lickers were in the third episode, briefly. The spider, I mean, it was cool to see a spider cut somebody in half, but, I mean, it wasn't cool enough to be like, oh, that's cool, you know, it's just, it's just still not, you know, what I was hoping for as far as BOW action goes. Now, I get what they were trying to do, well, maybe I kind of get what they were trying to do with making a story based in the Resident Evil universe, but modern, because we know that Raccoon City, you know, the original story of Resident Evil happened in 1998, so maybe they were like, what if this happened now, in 2022 or 23? But this new Raccoon City, it's completely run by Umbrella. No government, there's no new Raccoon Police Department, you know, it's all just Umbrella security. You know, the reason this outbreak kind of happened was because, you know, Wesker's daughters, one of them's very, very angry, angsty, you know, Moira Burton type character, just very foul-mouthed, angry at her dad. And then the other daughter is very, I guess, very emotional, very non-confrontational, a vegan, animal rights activist. You know, this whole thing happened because she saw some rabbits at the Umbrella lab and wanted to break into the lab and free the animals. Well, they end up trying to free the animals, and they freed up an infected dog, a Cerberus, and it gets loose. I mean, I liked this plot better when it was called 28 Days Later.
Stop! You've no idea!
It just felt like everything that they were doing in here has already been done, like, so many times before. You know, it almost feels like somebody just had their own idea for a zombie apocalypse, a post-apocalypse type situation, but they wanted it to be done by the T-virus. I mean, if that was an aspiration of somebody's, I can't blame them for wanting to bring that to life. I mean, I've had many of my own Resident Evil-inspired fan fiction movie ideas. You know, they're all up here, but I don't have the power to bring those to life. I mean, I guess it doesn't really make sense to me, because being a Resident Evil fan and having always wanted to make Resident Evil films, I mean, I know that the films that I make would be very faithful and realistic and sensible to the original Resident Evil storyline, so I just don't understand why it seems so difficult for, I mean, after all this time and so many attempts, why is this still happening? So, I mean, clearly, some people that have the power to create things should not. This show, in my opinion, was just another Resident Evil themed waste of time, money, and resources. All the true elements of Resident Evil are being missed or overlooked or just completely ignored by the powers that be for these films. Evidently, Resident Evil is the Excalibur of films, that no one has been able to pull the Resident Evil sword from the stone yet. It's going to take the chosen one, the King Arthur of filmmakers, so to speak, to pull the Resident Evil sword from the stone and wield it appropriately. Now, I'm not saying it should be me. I'm no filmmaker. But I've been with Resident Evil from the beginning. And since childhood, it's been a life's dream to just make the perfect Resident Evil film. I wish you could see the Resident Evil films in my head. They're marvelous. I wish I could bring them to life. I've already been working on getting some stuff together for this filmmaker journey that I'm trying to go on. And if you're interested in what I could create, in terms of good, faithful, sensible Resident Evil films, I'm leaving a link in the description for a GoFundMe that I started to help with getting this thing kicked off. This GoFundMe is solely for Resident Evil film projects. Please check it out. Please consider donating. Please spread the word for me. I'm getting old. We're all getting old. Time's running out. And the name of Resident Evil has been tainted for too long. Now, as far as the Netflix Resident Evil series, I've had a few people tell me they've like, well, I had like maybe a couple people tell me they like it. Some people thought it was okay. Some, like me, started and didn't finish it. And the majority of what I'm hearing, they think it's total BS. Emphasis on total BS. If you like it, good for you. I'm not here to put anybody down that likes it. I mean, I don't expect everybody to hate it. And this is all my personal opinion. But anyway, thank you for watching Arclay Overcast. Thank you for listening to me rant. Thanks for spending this time with me. It feels like Resident Evil is just in a really, really bad place, has been for a while, and Resident Evil fans, you know, overall need to support each other now more than ever. But please like, subscribe, share that word for me, and we'll see you guys next time. Ta-ta for now.